imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Sturbridge Planning Board will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information in the general guidelines for remote participation can be found on the town's website at www.sturbridge.gov/town-administrator/pages/how-access-virtual-meeting. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen and or watch the meeting either online via the town's on-demand video broadcast, on cable television on channel 191, or dial into the meeting at 774-304-1455, enter 1428# for the meeting number, and 12345 for the access code. This phone number is only active for the public during public meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post audio and or video recordings, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings on the town's website as soon as possible after the meeting. So for the agenda, the first item we need to approve the minutes of September 22nd. Jean, I don't believe we have any A&Rs.
No, we do not.
Okay. So at 6:35, we will review the proposed revisions to the accessory dwelling unit bylaw. Following that, we'll have the town planner update, then old and new business, and then adjournment. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes of Tuesday, September 22nd? Any questions, comments, changes?
I have a minor edit.
Sure.
Motion to approve the minutes was 6 people, but the number is 7. Very minor.
Okay, Janae, you got that?
Yep, thank you.
Great. Okay, can we have a motion then to approve the minutes as corrected? Russ? Oh, you can't make a motion. Sue, you want to make a motion?
So moved. So moved.
Okay, fine. Okay, Sue moved. Who seconded it?
I'll second. Chris.
Yes, okay, great. Very good. Sue, how do you vote?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Mike?
Mike, you're muted.
Mike?
Yes, sorry.
Okay. Jeff?
Yes.
And I vote yes. And Russ, you'll abstain?
Correct. Must abstain.
Very good. Okay. Okay, with that, Jean, do you want to give us your report on the recommendations on the accessory dwelling unit bylaw?
Yes. So in your packets, we provided a copy of that housing production plan that we just finished developing with Central Mass Regional Planning Commission and the Housing Partnership. And I know that several of you were able to attend the housing forums that we held and participate in those events. So what we heard a lot from the events and from the survey was really nothing that we didn't know. Our accessory dwelling unit bylaw makes it extremely difficult for people to be able to develop a unit of reasonable size, and it doesn't allow at all the use of a detached accessory dwelling unit. So since the bylaw was adopted in 2009, we've only created 2 units using this bylaw, and both of them were quite challenging. So the housing plan recommends that we remove the size limitation, and you'll also note that excuse me, the ADU bylaw right now allows a unit of 600 square feet or 20% of the size of your dwelling, whichever is less. And actually, our minimum size for a dwelling unit elsewhere in the bylaw is 750 square feet. So right from the start, we're 150 square feet smaller than what we allow the smallest size dwelling to be constructed at. The other issue with it is that you can have an accessory dwelling unit in an attached accessory structure, but not in a detached accessory structure. So a few years ago, when we started seeing what was called, termed the granny pod, which was really kind of like a little cottage that some communities were allowing be put on the property for, say, your mother, if she needed to be closer by, but yet you wanted her in her kind of own space. And they're brought in like almost like a modular dwelling unit. And our bylaw didn't allow that. So we did have several people inquire to do that, and we were unable to allow that. So the housing plan, that's another recommendation, is that we give a little more flexibility to people that are, you know, trying to create a unit, maybe to care for a family member, or maybe you're the older family member and you want to have your child or niece or somebody closer by to kind of help you out with things. So I'm recommending that we, number one, remove the square footage limitation and merely say that an accessory dwelling unit is a second dwelling unit that is subordinate in size to the principal dwelling unit on the property. And also that an accessory dwelling unit could be within the principal dwelling or an accessory structure, attached or detached. And then the other things that I'm recommending are that we remove the language, we'll back up to one that I just emailed you this afternoon that I had missed in the original draft. Our parking table in Chapter 21 requires 1 parking space for an accessory dwelling unit. And this bylaw, I didn't catch it when we updated the parking table, still calls for 1.5 parking spaces per unit. So I'm recommending we change that to be consistent with Chapter 21 and require 1 parking space per dwelling unit for the accessory dwelling unit. You can see I added just 1 sentence in there that when the accessory dwelling unit is created in an accessory structure, the exterior appearance shall be visibly compatible with the primary dwelling and the character of the neighborhood. And I think the other important thing to remember is these units cannot be created without a special permit. So if you're proposing to put one of these in your home, you're filing your site plan, your architectural plans, and you're making special permit application to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and they do need to hold a public hearing on that as well. And then on the next page, I'm recommending that we remove the transfer of ownership clauses, the declaration of covenant clauses, and the renewal clauses. To be honest with you, the permits that have been granted, these have not been required as conditions of approval, because if you think about the cost to create a unit in your home and then to come back the next year to have it renewed, and what if it wasn't renewed? It seems like a very unfair burden. So we actually, with the 2 that have been created, that has not been imposed as a condition, and it is a little bit dated. I think when this was done in 2009, accessory dwelling units were not necessarily the norm as they are right now, but we are seeing now the family structure drastically changing, people needing the ability to excuse me, care for a loved one, or maybe need some care themselves that somebody can provide for them. And in some instances, perhaps they even need the little bit of additional income so that they can help stay in their home while they age. So for those reasons, I think the recommendations I have are consistent with the housing plan. Excuse me, I'm sorry. And I would recommend that you support these changes, and then when we do the codification, I'm so sorry, allergies. And then when we hold the hearings for the codification, that we include these changes as well.
Okay, very good. I'll go through and ask everyone if they have any comments or questions. Sue, do you have any comments or questions on this?
About the plan, the production plan?
Yes.
No,
About the items that you just brought up, Jean.
On the items that I just
the
brought up.
changes to the accessory.
Okay, no question.
Okay. Chris?
Nope, no questions.
Okay. Dane?
Just a couple of minor items. On page 91, section 1804, section A, in the grammar it says the accessory unit shall clearly be a subordinate in size.
Okay, thank you.
Similarly, on page 92, 1805, just cleaning up the deletion of B, renumbering C to B, and then renumbering 1807 to be 1806.
Thank you. Okay.
And I was wondering why there's a provision in here about limiting the maximum number of on-site parking spaces to be 5. I mean, I don't know elsewhere within the regulation that we limit single-family residential to a maximum number of parking spaces. But it seems like if they opt to go for an accessory unit, then they are then limited in the number of spaces they can have on their property.
I'm sorry, Dane, where are you reading?
Under it would be 1804, the renumbered I.
Oh, yes. So that was put in mainly because people, I believe, at the time had concerns that residential lots would start to look like commercial parking lots. But I don't necessarily disagree with you. I don't really think that it's necessary. Like I said, we've only had this 2 units created, and in both cases, they only created 1 parking space. We rarely see this where, you know, people are coming in and paving 10 parking spaces, but that was the rationale behind it. So I think, you know, if the board cares to remove that, I'm happy to delete that sentence as well. I don't know how other people feel.
I think it's my assumption, and that was my final comment, so I'll see if anybody else has any other thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dane.
Yeah. I think Dane makes a good point that, you know, if this is the only section that has a limit, then it's probably a good idea to get rid of it. Does anyone disagree with that? Or?
No.
Okay.
I can't imagine anybody putting that many parking spots in. But
No.
All right.
Mike, do you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, I guess so subordinate to the primary dwelling, would that be like if it was like 10 square feet less, then it would be subordinate?
Well, I think it would be up, technically yes, and then also it would be up to the Zoning Board of Appeals to determine if it were reasonable. So when they go to the Zoning Board of Appeals for the special permit, they'd have to provide their plan, including their floor plans of the new unit. So in a case where maybe you have handicapped, number one, could have a very small home. We actually have quite a few homes in town that are quite small, some even under 1,000 square feet. So it very well may be that, you know, the unit is, you know, 10 square feet smaller, but the zoning board deems it necessary because maybe it just reasonably holds maybe the 2 bedrooms that it needs and the kitchen and living space. So I think everything would need to be kind of examined on a case-by-case basis by the zoning board to be sure what's being proposed seems reasonable for what they're requesting.
So it sounds like there's enough oversight. Just I get flashbacks from where I grew up, where this type of allowance can get a little bit out of control with the zoning requirement stuff. So I think you know where we are, where we sit, is probably not an issue right now, and hopefully it won't be an issue for the foreseeable future. I just don't want to see like a bunch of densely populated residential areas popping up because people are taking advantage of you know, the allowance in the bylaw.
Right. I think the other thing
Very good point.
I think the other thing too to remember, Mike, is that they still need to meet the lot coverage requirements, which is a maximum of 15% in a residential neighborhood without special permit from the zoning board, and they'd still have to meet the same setback requirements as you would for your single-family home. So the detached accessory structure or an addition to the home would still need to meet those minimum setback requirements as well.
Oh, perfect. That makes sense. Yep. Thank you.
You're
Very
welcome.
good. Jeff?
No questions.
Okay, great. Russ?
No questions.
Okay. Jean, do you need a motion then to move this forward, or?
I would like one, please, because what I need to do now is I'll send this in as part of the codification work, and then when we hold the public hearings on the changes to the zoning for that, we'll include this as one of those items. So I'd like the planning board to vote to support the accessory dwelling unit changes and to also be the petitioner for those changes.
Okay, would someone like to make that motion?
So moved, Russell.
Second, Sue.
Okay, great. Any other questions or comments on it? If not, Sue, how do you vote?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Russ?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. So next, your planners update.
Yes. So at our next meeting on October 27th, the Housing Partnership and Central Mass Regional Planning Commission will be presenting the housing plan and explaining the plan and answering any questions that the board may have about the plan. And we've given you the copy now so that you can read through this and, you know, maybe mark any pages of areas where you have any questions. If anyone wants to submit questions in advance, I'll make sure that I get those to CMRPC so they can be prepared to answer any questions. I would think they'd be able to, even if they're not in advance, but I'm more than willing to take them in advance if you'd like to do so. And then also on October 27th, we should be again talking about the Village Gateway District. So Mr. Patel's consultants were unable to meet with me last week. We did have a brief conference call, and actually I'm meeting with them at the end of this week in the hopes that we can put something together for your packets for the meeting of the 27th. And Pilot Travel. So they've begun work down there and they've encountered a few items that affected the design of the facility. So one major issue was on-site grading. They realized that the grading plan wouldn't really work as designed in order to keep them operating as long as possible. So they needed to change some of the grading plans, and actually they're doing a little bit less in terms of grading. And they've reduced the affected footprint so that fueling of the vehicles can continue, which really was a big concern as we reviewed this. We need to make sure that we're not clogging up that road and that they can function for as long as practical. And then the other thing was when they did their exploratory, they found that the power to the cell tower and the hotel run in a duct bank that is in the middle of the road. And this was previously unknown. And due to its location, they're unable to remove one of the existing stormwater lines out of fear that the duct bank would be destroyed. And so that line needs to stay in place, and it will cut across the corner of infiltration basin number 2, which reduced the size of the basin slightly. So we brought John Shevlin, our peer reviewer, in for a meeting with myself and Rebecca Gendro, the conservation agent, the applicant, and their engineers. And after review, it was determined that this would not impact their stormwater management plan as approved. So we're considering this a minor modification to be shown on their as-built plans when they're complete. The fire intake line at the pond will need to go back to the Conservation Commission. So they did send a diver into the pond to check the status of the fire intake line, and they found the pipe cannot be plugged to allow for safe excavation of the new fire pump wet well. And because of its depth, someone would have to tap the pipe while they were 10 feet underground, and they deemed that not to be safe because if it got flooded out with water, they'd absolutely have no way to escape. So they're still weighing options about replacing the line, but they believe the best course of action would be to pump down the pond to complete that work. So they will need to work with their wetlands consultants and the Conservation Commission and file a modification for that work. So just an update on a few things there, but they are making progress. The next thing is I met with the owner of 29 Brookfield Road. This is the former Canine Compatibles, which is 148. So right after Fred's Variety and the Village Grill there was a dog training facility and retail store in that building. So it's been sold, and these are the owners of George's Pizza. They have facilities in Charlton, West Brookfield, Southbridge, and I believe this will be their 4th location. Yes, they have 3 other locations. So they will need to repave and restripe the parking lot, and they also will have room to rent to a tenant on the other side. The apartment that's upstairs will remain. There's a rather sizable apartment there that is rented, and that will remain in place. So I met out there with the building inspector, and we went through the building. We talked about some different things that they'll need to do in accordance with the building code and as far as working with the Board of Health. But since they're really just resurfacing the parking lot and restriping the parking lot, I didn't see the need to put them through full site plan review, so I'm recommending they just come in for a waiver of site plan to meet with the board, explain to you what they are planning to do, and so that you can review their proposal and meet with them. But there's not much in the way of work. It will be nice to see the parking lot cleaned up because there's quite a few potholes over there right now, so it hasn't been used in some time, and it'll be nice to see the building reused. The other item is that I did set up a visit to Pine Lake RV Resort on next Wednesday, October 21st at 4 o'clock. And I have heard from a few of you. I don't know if there's anyone else that would like to attend, or if there's anyone that would like a tour but is just unable to make that early time and I need to schedule something different for you. So does anyone else know if they will be attending?
I'd like to join if available.
Okay. All right.
Okay, great.
Great. And if not, Dane, I know you did want to go there. I can always set up an alternate if you get delayed at work. So just let me know.
I appreciate that, but I don't want to put anybody out just for me.
I'm sure Phil would be happy to show the place to you. So, all right. So I will plan on meeting all of you there that plan to attend on site. Actually, we have a new economic development coordinator who started work today. His name is Terry Masterson, and I actually invited him to join us because he saw the presentation at the Board of Selectmen's meeting and wanted to actually meet Phil and see it in person, so he will be joining us that evening. So, and then finally, we have some papers in the office that some of you still need to sign, and it's to authorize Sue to sign the plans at the Registry of Deeds. And in her absence, all of you would need to sign, so we do need your signature on that paper so we can get that recorded at the registry. So if you haven't stopped in, please do so. I know my schedule's been a little sporadic where I've been out on inspections or in meetings, but what we've been doing is leaving that paper right on the counter. So if one of us is not in the office, we've been trying to leave that paper there to be signed. So if you haven't, please do so. And our next meeting, I already went over that, is on the 27th. So that is all I have.
Great. Thank you very much, Jean.
You're welcome.
And next on the agenda is open business. Russ, do you have any old or new business?
I do, Charlie. Gene, going back to pilot, and I didn't want to interrupt you, but I know for a fact that our local police department's been down there almost on a daily basis writing parking tickets out on Route 15. And also today there was also an issue with the school bus couldn't get through because of the trucks blocking the road completely. And I'm not sure what, if anything, can be done, or if it's an issue with the grading. That's why it seems to be more prevalent now. But it is a concern. It's obviously a safety concern if a fire truck or ambulance can't get through there. But like I said, again, this afternoon, the school bus could not get through. The road was completely blocked.
I appreciate you making me aware, because I was unaware there had been any issues. So I will reach out to them tomorrow, and I'll also talk to Chief Desert as well to find out what's been going on. Thank you. Appreciate that.
I'm sure he'll tell you. I heard him there several times writing tickets himself. So
okay.
I
know we did
discussion at the Brookfield Road.
Oh, sorry. Can I just go back to Pilot for 1 second? I know that Chief Desert had met on site with all of us at the time that we were doing the site visits, and I know that he said he was going to step up enforcement in that corridor and start writing tickets during construction so that we could try to discourage people from parking on the road and clogging the roadway up. So that could be part of what the increased ticketing is about. And I know we are working with Pilot to get some new signage installed on Route 15 saying no parking, but I'll definitely follow up on that. I appreciate you bringing it to my attention.
Thank you. With your discussions at, just briefly on Brookfield Road, was there any discussion about a grease trap and all that?
Yes.
Would that be under the Board of Health?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then the last thing I have, I tried to watch the last meeting since I wasn't there, and on the town website, the most recent meetings up until like a week ago were back in August. On the podcast, is there an issue with posting the meetings?
You know, I'm not aware of that.
If we do miss a meeting,
we'll have to follow up with Bruce. I did notice that myself because I needed to look at one of our previous meetings, and it was not there. So I'm not sure if he's having an issue, but I will follow up with him. And the other thing I noticed too was I was trying to watch one of the meetings through live streaming, and it was not streaming. So we'll follow up with Bruce as well.
Thank you. That's all I have,
You're
Charlie.
welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Russ. Sue, do you have any old or new business?
All set. Thank you.
Okay, great. Chris?
Nope, I'm all set.
Good. Dane?
Nope.
Okay. Mike?
None.
Okay. Jeff?
Nothing.
Okay, and I don't have any old or new either. Very good. So next we'll just have a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Sue?
Sue? Yeah?
Russ, second?
Second, Russell?
Okay. Sue, how do you vote?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Dane?
Yeah.
Mike?
Yes.
Jeff? Jeff?
Yeah.
Russ?
Russell, yes.
And I vote yes. Very good. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.